So Kawasaki just released their 2025 KX250 and KX450. I don't know too much about this bike, but based off of the pictures that I've seen on Instagram, I'm going to give you my opinion. Now, by the looks of the bikes, they didn't change that much, but something that confuses me is that in the picture, they had a Pro Circuit exhaust marketing as their stock exhaust for their new 2025s. I'll pop up the picture again. In the picture, they had a Pro Circuit exhaust on it. I don't think their stock bikes are coming with Pro Circuit exhaust. I've been around dirt bikes for 5 years, and I've never seen a company come out with a brand new dirt bike and have a name brand exhaust on that bike, unless they're doing like a big sponsorship with them, which maybe Pro Circuit and Kawasaki is for this 2025 release. Two Kawasaki's right here. One of them has a stock exhaust and the other one doesn't. This KX140 has a stock exhaust, and there is no writing on this exhaust at all, because this is an exhaust made by Kawasaki. But if you look at the KX250 that doesn't have a stock exhaust, there is a brand on the bike, because this is a name brand exhaust. Probably confused about what I'm talking about. I'm just going to cut to the chase. Kawasaki posted that picture of their Pro Circuit exhaust on the stocked 2025s. I think they just put it on for the picture. Basically what I'm saying is, if you go out and you buy a 2025 KX250 or KX450, it's not coming with a Pro Circuit exhaust. When you see a brand come out with a new bike, there's 3 things you want to look for. Number 1, how much does this bike cost brand new? The 2025s cost anywhere between $9,000 to $10,000 brand new. That's a joke. I'm a fan of Kawasaki's. Even before I owned my first Kawasaki, I've always loved them, but their bikes have always been super expensive. Hope you guys aren't that stupid to spend that much money on a motorcycle. Next up is, what is the difference between their new 2025 model and last year's model, the 2024? So with the 2025 KX250 and KX450, apparently they changed the pipes in the motor. Supposedly those are better quality pipes, and they're also easier to gain access to, which is kind of nice. If you have to do a rebuild on your motor, or if you just have to go in it for something, it's going to be way easier to take the motor apart than it would be to an older bike like this. Another thing they did, it's super simple, but it's really nice, is that they made a pop-off panel. And they only did it to one panel, and that one panel is this airbox panel. I think on every dirt bike, an airbox panel gets the most attention over every other panel on a dirt bike. You guys are opening this so much. You don't have the right screwdrivers for it, or you took it out and then you lost the bolt and then you got to buy a new one. So having this be a pop-out panel is going to be super nice. Concern is that the pop-out panel will pop off while you're riding your dirt bike, which is actually what happened to me. So for those who don't know, on the KLX140s, this is the airbox, and there is a panel that is supposed to go above this. This panel actually fell off when I was riding, and this is a pop-off panel. This panel fell off about over a month ago or even 2 months ago, and we never found it. So maybe the pop-off panel isn't a good idea, but it can be. Now I'm going to get roasted in the comments because I'm going to be honest, I don't know that much about the 2025s. I'm giving you guys my first perspective on the 2025s based off of one single Instagram post. Based off of my first perspective on the new 2025s, should you buy it? Absolutely not. Okay, so I got some news last night that changes the whole perspective of me getting a new bike. So let's switch back in time a little bit. My very first bike was this SSR 125, and I was riding this bike for 3 years. Then I got this KLX 140, and I was riding this bike for 2 years. Now, this bike is getting way too small for me, and I am switching over to a 250. Okay, here's where everything takes a turn. So for those who don't know, I brought it up many times. I was supposed to take over my dad's 250, and then my dad was going to get, himself a new bike. So I was going to take over my dad's 250, and then he was going to go out and buy himself his own bike. So my dad told me yesterday that, I'm going to set the camera down for this, because it's actually, kind of interesting. So basically, yesterday my dad told me, he said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find a bike that's a good deal, and I'm going to get a 250. He said I get to choose what bike I want to ride. So if I go out, or if my dad goes out, and this is what he said. He said, if I were to buy a YZ250, and if I were to ride the 250, and if I were to like that bike more than this bike, then that would be my bike, and then my dad would still have this one. Or if my dad were to buy a CRF 250, and I would ride that one, and if I like that one more, then then I would ride the 250, and I would ride that 250 instead of this 250. Or if I like this 250 better, I would get this one, and then my dad would get this one. So we would both get new bikes. Now, I don't know. Technically, I could not end up with this bike, or I could end up with this bike. At this point, it is my choice. If my dad gets a Honda, a CRF 250, I'm probably still going to stick with this bike. If he gets another KX250, I'm probably going to stick with this bike. But if he gets a YZ250, I know, guys, I love Kawasaki's. I've always loved them. But it would be nice to just, like, flow through, like, the brands of the bikes and, like, get a good feeling of them. Also, I don't know. Honestly, I love this bike so much. I really do. I love the looks of it. I love the feel. I love the sound of it. It's just amazing. Also, if I do tell my dad, let's say my dad gets a YZ250. I go, Dad, I'm going to stay on, I want this bike, you can have the Yamaha. I could still ride the Yamaha, and my dad could still ride this. This would be my bike, but we would just swap. Because we couldn't do that before, because my dad was on a 250 and I was on a 140. Big CC difference. But when we both have 250 CCs, we could both swap all the time. I don't know, guys, it's going to be interesting, but as of right now, I'm still sticking with this bike. This is not my bike, technically. Technically, this is still not my bike. I'm still a trail bike owner, which is fine. The future's going to be interesting. So there's this one panel on the 250 that's being held on with zip ties. And we're not backyard riders here, so we don't hold on our panels with zip ties. Recently, we just got this KX250 and KX450 bolt kit. So basically, every single bolt that is holding that bike together is in this box. Okay, so first we're going to cut off the zip tie. And then this bottom panel isn't being held on with anything. Okay, so now we're going to look through all these bolts, and we're just going to match the correct bolt that goes on with that panel. Okay, so the latch bolts were too bulky, so we're trying these. Now the KX250 is being held on by bolts and not zip ties. If your plastics are being held on by zip ties, you're probably a backyard rider.